She said, "I'm pregnant, but it might be yours or my ex's." I replied, "Congrats." Then I filed for divorce and had my lawyer send her the paperwork on the day of her baby shower. Her hysterical call demanding I pay child support. I, 37M, never thought I'd be posting one of these stories. I was the guy who rolled his eyes at relationship drama on Reddit, the guy who wondered why people air their dirty laundry online. Well, life comes at you fast. Sometimes you need to vent to strangers because the people who know you are too close to the situation. And sometimes you want to warn others about the red flags you missed. Rebecca, 35F, and I met through work 6 years ago. She was smart, ambitious, and we clicked immediately. We dated for 2 years before getting married, and I thought we were solid. She had her quirks, who doesn't? But nothing that raised alarms. One of those quirks was staying friends with her exes, and I mean all of them. She had this theory that if you once cared enough about someone to date them, there must be something worthwhile about them as a person. I didn't love it, but I'm not the jealous type. Besides, I'd met most of them at various social gatherings, and they seemed harmless enough. Except for Jason. Jason was the one who got away, according to Rebecca. They dated in college, broke up when he moved across the country for grad school, and reconnected as friends a year before I met her. He was now living back in our city, working as a professor at the local university. Whenever Jason's name came up, Rebecca would get this look. A mixture of nostalgia and something else I couldn't quite place. But I trusted her. That was my first mistake. Fast forward to last November. Rebecca had been acting distant for a few weeks. Working late, being vague about her plans, the classic signs that I was too trusting to recognize. Then one Sunday morning, while I was making pancakes, her favorite, she dropped the bomb. "Hey, so, I'm pregnant." I froze, spatula in mid-flip. We hadn't been trying, but we hadn't been not trying either. After 4 years of marriage, a baby felt like the natural next step. Wow, that's amazing," I said, genuinely excited despite the surprise. Rebecca didn't smile. Instead, she examined her fingernails and said with all the emotion of someone discussing the weather, "The thing is, it might not be yours. It could be Jason's." The pancake burned as I tried to process what she'd just said. "What do you mean it might be Jason's?" I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it anyway. "We've been seeing each other for a few months. It just happened." She shrugged, actually shrugged, like she was telling me she'd grabbed the wrong coffee order. "I'm about 8 weeks along, and the timing, well, it could be either of you." I'd like to say I had some dignified response, that I demanded answers or threw her out on the spot. But the truth? I just said congratulations in a hollow voice, turned off the stove and walked out of the house. I drove around for hours, trying to make sense of it all. The betrayal was bad enough, but the casual way she'd told me, like I should just accept that my wife had been sleeping with her ex, and now I might be raising his kid? That was what really broke me. When I finally came home that evening, Rebecca acted like nothing was wrong. She was on the couch, scrolling through baby names on her phone. I realized then that she fully expected me to just deal with it, to raise this child regardless of paternity, no questions asked. "We need to talk about this," I said. "About what?" "The baby? I know it's a shock, but we'll figure it out. If it's Jason's, he already said he doesn't want to be involved anyway." I must have looked like I'd been slapped, because she finally seemed to register my distress. "Look, I know I messed up, but this could be a good thing. We wanted a family, right? And now we'll have one." That's when I knew our marriage was over. In her mind, her affair was just a minor bump in the road, not a fundamental betrayal of trust. And she saw me as such a pushover that I'd raise another man's child while she potentially continued seeing him. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I nodded and said we should take some time to process everything. That we'd figure it out. She seemed relieved by my apparent acceptance. That was her first mistake. The next morning, while Rebecca was in the shower, I checked her phone. I know. Invasion of privacy and all that. But at that point, I felt I had the right to know the extent of the betrayal. What I found was worse than I imagined. Hundreds of messages between her and Jason going back over a year. The affair hadn't just happened. It had been carefully planned and executed while I remained oblivious. Even more disturbing were the messages after she discovered her pregnancy. The two of them discussing what to tell me, with Jason suggesting they let me down easy by pretending the paternity was uncertain when they both seemed to believe the baby was his. Rebecca arguing that since I was more financially stable, it would be better if I accepted the baby as mine, regardless of biology. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself. Then I called in sick to work and went to see a divorce attorney. Now, I should mention that I live in North Carolina, where adultery still matters in divorce proceedings as a form of marital misconduct. It doesn't guarantee a favorable settlement, but it can influence things, especially with the right evidence. My lawyer, Diane, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd seen it all. "Good thing you got those texts," she said after hearing my story. "In our state, communications on a shared family plan or device are generally admissible in divorce proceedings. But we need more. Does she keep a diary? Are there witnesses to the affair? Bank statements showing suspicious expenses? The more ammunition we have, the better position you'll be in." Over the next few weeks, I became a detective in my own marriage. I discovered Rebecca had been using our joint account to buy gifts for Jason. She'd taken sick days at work to meet him at hotels. She'd even taken a weekend trip with him that she'd told me was a girls' trip with her college friends. All the while, I played the role of supportive, if slightly shell-shocked, husband. I went to her first prenatal appointment. I listened to her talk about nursery colors. I even had dinner with her parents, who were thrilled about becoming grandparents. "You're handling this really well," Rebecca told me one night, patting my hand condescendingly. "I was worried you'd freak out about the Jason thing, but I'm glad you're being mature." I smiled and squeezed her hand. "What matters is that we're having a baby," I lied. By Christmas, Rebecca was starting to show. She wanted to wait until after the holidays to announce the pregnancy to our wider circle of friends, which worked perfectly for my timeline. The divorce paperwork was ready by mid-January. All I needed was the right moment to pull the trigger. That moment presented itself when Rebecca mentioned her friends were throwing her a baby shower in February. "Isn't it a little early?" I asked, knowing she'd be around 16 weeks then. "Don't people usually wait until the third trimester?" "Well, Megan is going on sabbatical in March and I want her to be there," Rebecca explained. "Besides, my doctor said given my age and some minor complications, it's better to celebrate now while everything's stable." I later learned there were no complications, just another manipulation to garner sympathy and rush celebrations before any potential drama. The day of the baby shower arrived. Rebecca was glowing with excitement as she left for her friend Megan's house, where a couple dozen of her closest friends and family members would be gathering to shower her with gifts and attention, her two favorite things. I waited until I knew the party would be in full swing, then sent a text to Diane. Green light. 2 hours later, my phone exploded with calls and texts. I let them all go to voicemail as I sat in a bar downtown, nursing a whiskey and waiting for the storm to pass. When I finally listened to the messages, Rebecca's was a mix of sobbing and screaming. How could I ambush her like this? On today of all days? In front of everyone she knew? Did I have any idea how humiliating it was to be served divorce papers while opening gifts for her baby? That had been precisely the point, of course. The same humiliation I'd felt when she casually informed me I might be raising her affair partner's child. The following weeks were chaos. Rebecca ping-ponged between begging me to reconsider and threatening to take me for everything I had. Jason suddenly vanished from the picture. Apparently, a pregnant ex-girlfriend with a vengeful husband wasn't part of his 5-year plan. Rebecca's family, who had always treated me like a son, was divided. Her mother called to tearfully ask if there was any chance of reconciliation. Her father, to my surprise, took me out for a beer and apologized for his daughter's behavior. "She's always been selfish," he admitted. "Her mother and I spoiled her. I love my daughter, but what she did to you, no man deserves that." Through it all, my lawyer kept me focused on the legal process rather than the emotional fallout. We had a strong case for a fault-based divorce, and with the evidence I'd gathered, Rebecca had limited leverage. Still, she tried everything. She claimed the messages were taken out of context. She said the affair had ended before she got pregnant. She even suggested that I had been emotionally unavailable, driving her into Jason's arms. None of it worked. The turning point came when Diane convinced Rebecca's lawyer that a paternity test was inevitable and delaying would only cost his client more in legal fees. This was a crucial battle, as North Carolina law creates a presumption that a husband is the legal father of any child conceived during the marriage. Diane filed a specific motion to address paternity alongside our divorce petition. After some legal back and forth, Rebecca finally agreed to a non-invasive prenatal paternity test, NIP, which uses cell-free fetal DNA from the mother's blood and can be safely performed after 8 weeks. The results came back a week later. I was not the father of Rebecca's child. The relief I felt was indescribable. With paternity established, the divorce proceedings accelerated. Since we had no children together, no significant shared assets beyond our modest home, we were both renters before marriage, and a prenup that protected my family's inheritance, there wasn't much to fight over. I agreed to a fair settlement, more generous than required, according to Diane, just to be done with it all. We split the equity in our home, divided our retirement accounts proportionally based on the duration of our marriage, each kept our own vehicles and personal possessions, and I voluntarily gave her $10,000 to help with her transition, though I wasn't legally required to do so. Due to the clear evidence and Rebecca's lawyer advising her not to drag out proceedings that would only increase her legal fees, our divorce was finalized in May, approximately 90 days after filing, the minimum waiting period required in our state. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, Rebecca gave birth to a baby boy. The baby arrived slightly early at 37 weeks, but was healthy. Yesterday, I received a hysterical call from her demanding child support. "The baby looks just like you," she sobbed. "The test must have been wrong. You need to take responsibility." "Rebecca, we've been over this. The DNA test was conclusive. I'm not the father. But Jason won't help. He's blocked my number, changed his office hours at the university, and his lawyer says without a court-ordered paternity test, he has no obligation. You're the one who made vows to me. You should support us." I almost laughed at the audacity. "Those vows became null and void when you cheated. This is between you and Jason now. I'll take you to court," she threatened. "I'll demand another test." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "The result will be the same, and you'll be adding legal fees you can't afford to a situation that's already settled." She hung up on me, but the calls kept coming. Then the texts. Then messages from her friends telling me what a deadbeat I was for abandoning my family. I've blocked them all now, and Diane assures me Rebecca has no legal grounds for demanding support from me given the established paternity and our finalized divorce. Still, I wouldn't put it past her to try. It's been a hell of a 6 months. I've moved to a new apartment, started therapy, and even gone on a few dates, though nothing serious. The trust issues are still raw. The strangest part has been watching mutual friends choose sides. Rebecca was strategic in controlling the narrative. She told everyone about the pregnancy first, positioning herself as the vulnerable, expectant mother. By the time news of the affair emerged, many friends were already emotionally invested in her journey to motherhood and chose to overlook the infidelity. Others who I barely knew have reached out with unexpected support, often because they'd witnessed or experienced something similar. Last week, I ran into Megan, the friend who hosted the baby shower, at a coffee shop. I braced for an awkward encounter, but she surprised me by sitting down at my table. "I want you to know that not all of us believe her version," she said quietly. "I saw those messages when she asked to use my phone to text Jason during the shower." She left her conversation open. What she did was wrong, and I told her so. It wasn't much, but it felt like vindication from an unexpected source. If there's a lesson in all this, I suppose it's to trust your instincts. I always felt uneasy about Jason, but I ignored it because I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, controlling husband. There's a difference between healthy trust and willful blindness, and I was definitely in the latter category. I also learned that how someone handles small betrayals predicts how they'll handle big ones. Rebecca had a history of little lies, exaggerating stories to make herself look better. forgetting to mention male friends joining supposedly all-female outings, taking credit for others' ideas at work. I rationalize these as harmless quirks rather than seeing them as character flaws. For those wondering about Jason, Rebecca eventually filed a paternity action against him after the baby was born. Despite his attempts to avoid service, he was legally required to submit to testing, which confirmed he was the father. He's now legally established as the father and required to pay child support based on his income as a professor. Rebecca posts passive-aggressive updates about deadbeat dads on social media, though she's careful never to name Jason directly. Just vague references that insiders would understand. Meanwhile, she maintains her image as a strong single mom who needs no man. The final twist in this saga came just yesterday. Rebecca's younger sister, who I always got along with, sent me a message. "Just thought you should know." Rebecca admitted to me that she knew all along the baby was Jason's. She thought you'd be a better father and provider, so she tried to pass it off as possibly yours. "I love my sister, but you deserved better." I thanked her for the information, but asked her to stop sending me updates about Rebecca unless it was something I truly needed to know. I'm ready to close this chapter for good. So here I am starting over at 37. It's not where I expected to be, but it's far better than the alternative. Raising another man's child with a woman who saw me as nothing more than a convenient wallet and babysitter. For anyone facing a similar situation, get evidence, get a lawyer, and get out. The pain of leaving is temporary. The pain of staying would have been permanent. Update 1 month later. First, thank you to everyone for the supportive comments and messages. I didn't expect this post to get the attention it did. A lot has happened in the past month, so I wanted to provide an update for those who asked. Rebecca's legal threats turned out to be just that, threats. After consulting with 3 different attorneys for initial consultations, according to her sister, she finally accepted that she has no case against me for child support. The prenatal DNA test, combined with our finalized divorce before the birth and the subsequent confirmation of Jason's paternity, makes it virtually impossible for her to pursue me financially. Jason, on the other hand, is now legally required to pay child support based on his income as a professor. It's not the windfall Rebecca was hoping for, but it's something. Her strong single mom social media persona is still going strong, though the deadbeat dad posts have tapered off since the support payments started. As for me, I've started a new job at a different company. Too many awkward run-ins with former colleagues who'd taken sides. The fresh start has been good for me. I'm also planning to move to a neighboring city once my lease is up, not running away exactly, but creating some healthy distance from the whole situation. The most unexpected development is that I've reconnected with someone from my past, an old friend from college who moved to my area recently. We've been taking things extremely slowly, but there's potential there. She knows the full story, and her perspective as an outsider has been refreshing. "You didn't dodge a bullet," she told me after hearing everything. "You dodged a nuclear missile." Rebecca reached out once more, not for money this time, but to suggest that I might want to be a part of the baby's life, since he needs a positive male role model. I declined politely but firmly. While I bear no ill will toward an innocent child, getting involved would only complicate an already messy situation and potentially give Rebecca false hope about reconciliation. Her sister continues to send me occasional updates, which I've again asked her to stop unless it's something I truly need to know. I'm ready to close this chapter for good. Looking back at the whole ordeal 6 months later, I'm struck by how differently I see things now. What felt like the end of the world has become a fortunate escape. I could have spent years raising a child that wasn't mine, with a woman who saw deception as a valid strategy to get what she wanted. Instead, I'm rebuilding. It's not always easy, but every day is better than the last. For anyone in the early stages of a similar situation, it gets better. Hold on to that truth on the dark days. Thanks again for all the support, Reddit. Sometimes strangers on the internet understand better than the people who are supposed to know you best. Edit. Since several people have asked, yes, I'm aware that in many states, being married when a child is born creates a legal presumption of paternity regardless of biology. North Carolina follows this presumption, but allows it to be rebutted with DNA evidence if acted upon promptly. My lawyer filed a specific motion addressing paternity alongside our divorce petition, which is why we were able to overcome this presumption. Always consult with a lawyer familiar with your local laws. What worked in my situation might not work everywhere.